In this video, I really want to talk about a few things that you can do when dealing with pressure. As a lot of you guys know, a lot of our lakes, rivers, even our ponds all have a lot of fishing pressure on them. And fishing pressure really changes how fish act. And there's a few things that I do whenever I feel like we're in a time period, for example, like right now, late summer, where you have a lot of fish that have seen a ton of pressure all year long. There's a few things that I like to do that help me just to get a few bites. And sometimes getting a few bites out there just gets the momentum going, and it can really help lead to a good day. Now, before we talk about that, this video is brought to you by Fin Fishing Apparel. And right now for the month of September 2025, I am running kind of a package deal over on the website. So basically you can get a USA made sun shirt, one of the only ones made here in the US, and the duck hat. This is a waterproof, highly durable, lightweight hat for $64 total. So typically this is a $90 overall deal, and right now it is $64. So you're saving about 30% on the overall package. So anyways, shopping at Fin Fishing is truly the best way to help support this channel. I greatly appreciate all of you who have shopped there in the past. All right, let's talk a little bit about fishing pressure. Like I said, and as many of you guys know, fishing pressure really changes the way that the fish act. It really changes their mood. It really changes how they respond to different baits. So one of the first things when it comes to dealing with fishing pressure is simple when said, but also not simple to always carry out. And that is fish where others aren't. That as easy as it is. Try to fish where others aren't. And one of the biggest things that you will see is that if you take about 5 to 10 good anglers and you actually have them all look at a lake map. Say you have them all look at a creek arm, you tell them what time of the year it is, you tell them, hey, it's summertime. I would say that the majority of those anglers, if you ask them to pick out like 4 or 5 good spots on a map, they're going to all say some of the exact same areas, because a lot of us anglers growing up, and even like what you're still told to this day, are all told the exact same things. You know, a lot of guys are looking for, contour lines that are really tight, that are going to provide a really good lip or a ledge, or areas where current is hitting up right against them. Things that really pop on a map are the typical places where anglers fish. Now, the whole thing with this is that a lot of times those areas do in fact have fish, but because they are so pressured, sometimes it is better to fish areas that maybe don't have as big of a population of fish, but a lot less pressure. Now, I just talked about this the other day in a video where I talked about how the quarterback sees a field and how it relates to bass fishing. And sometimes out there on the body of water, instead of going to the best looking place that you see on a map, one of the best things that you can do is go to places that don't look that great. For example, in the summertime, like right now, we all fish a lot of points. A point is very easy to spot on a map, and we all like the points. Now, one point that a lot of anglers don't always like to fish are ones that are like these bigger rounded points, ones that don't literally have a point to them. These bigger rounded points, they take a little bit more time to decipher, but bass will get on those just as they will get on those really pointy points. And so looking at a map or looking at Google Earth, if you see an area where you're like, man, there's gotta be a bass there, actually avoid those areas. I know it sounds crazy, but if you have time to put in to find these areas that maybe don't get hit all that often, you are going to be avoiding a lot of pressure. And you may not always find huge populations of fish, but you may be able to find more catchable fish that aren't being fished for every single day. Now, what you also find at times is magical spots. If you find an area that is hard to see on a map or on Google Earth, and it's just like, maybe it's a rock pile up on top of a flat, or it's a small stump that's all by itself, whatever it may be, those type of areas can become magical areas that you can have for years at catching fish. So when you look at a map, when you look at Google Earth, when you know you're going to be dealing with pressure, don't always go to the best looking areas. And I know that sounds a little bit weird, but it is something that can help you catch a lot of fish. Now, sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes, I think it's important to understand when you can't reinvent the wheel, if that's what it makes sense. When we try to find new spots, like I just talked about, it's really, you're trying to reinvent the wheel. You're trying to do something a little bit different. There are lakes out there where no matter what, you are dealing with a lot of pressure. You are dealing with substantial pressure. And the biggest thing that I have learned on these type of lakes, no matter what the technique, no matter what the cover or structure that you are dealing with, try to fish a weightless presentation. I know that it sounds really simple, but having a weightless presentation, I have seen so many times out there where that just catches pressured bass. And it's something that, you know, if you pull up to a point or if you pull up to a stretch of bank, you know, we'll use both of those as examples. If you pull up to a point, a lot of guys might throw a deep diving crankbait, a big jig, a big worm. They might fire a lipless, or not a lipless, a swim bait of some sort out there. Whatever it may be, these are all baits that are either coming fast through the water column or you're dragging a big weight across the bottom. In that situation, one of the best things that you can do, a Carolina rig. I have seen a Carolina rig beat pressure often out there on the water. And you might be saying, well, a Carolina rig has a big weight, but again, you are presenting a weight a bait in a weightless manner. The weight is typically far away, 2.5, 3 foot away from the bait, but the bait looks very natural out there on the bottom. And I have seen even like recently where you can throw a weighted bait through an area, like a jig, like a Texas rig, and you won't get many bites. You get small bites. You throw a Carolina rig in there, again, a weightless presentation, and it gets a lot of bites. Another good weightless presentation is a drop shot. You guys know that I love a drop shot. Again, there actually is a weight on it, but if you work this thing very slow, you can actually present that bait very weightless down there on the bottom. Another really good weightless presentation I've talked a lot about over the last couple of years now is that cover scat style bait. That poop style, heavy poop style bait, which you fish weightless. That is something I feel like still has not caught on, and I'm telling you, there's guys that are fishing it that probably don't want me talking about it, but it is legit. And the best thing about that one is you get to fish it on heavy tackle. Now there's some obvious weightless presentations. For example, like I talked about, if you pull up on a stretch of bank, you know, I will never forget a number of years ago, I went fishing with this was when I was like 16 years old. I went fishing with an older guy, not like super old, he's like mid-30s, probably what I am age-wise now. And I was out there fishing with him, and we went to this stretch of bank where like I was thinking I'm gonna flip a jig or I'm gonna flip a Texas rig, right? It's dirtier water, a lot of laydowns in the water. And I'm like, the only thing I could really think about was that and maybe a square bill. And I'll never forget, he picked up a weightless Cinco on a Texas rig style bait. It was weightless, just with a EWG style hook. And he started flipping this weightless Cinco into those laydowns. And he caught a lot of fish that day. And it really opened up my eyes to just how many more bites you can get in a situation like that. This was a very pressured area. Like, it's one of the most well-known stretches of bank in this entire lake. And I was doing what everyone else probably does. He did something that was simply a little bit different, and I've never seen someone catch as many fish as he did in that stretch. Years even before that, I remember this, like the times that you learn these things that you hold with you for life. My uncle down in Florida, we were fishing Kissimmee grass. Kissimmee grass is pretty thick. And a lot of times you're flipping, I would say a 3/8 ounce is about the lightest. A lot of times 3/8 ounce to a 1/2 ounce is where you're going with, unless you kind of have those single strands of Kissimmee grass. And we had a cold front day kind of come through. So this isn't necessarily pressure, but the pull pressure thing still relates to it. He picked up a 1/16 ounce weight on a fluke and started flipping it in the Kissimmee grass. And I remember watching him literally let line out as the bait is falling slowly through the Kissimmee grass, excuse me. And although that's not a weightless presentation, it was about as light as you could go while actually being able to get that bait to the bottom. Again, he absolutely caught the fire out of him. I will never forget these moments. So a weightless presentation is absolutely a great thing that you can do when dealing with pressure. Now, the third thing that you can deal with pressure, the third thing that you can do a lot when you're dealing with pressure is have a lot of rods on the front deck of the boat and don't really care about where you catch them. And what I mean by that is sometimes you're gonna shoot up to the bank, you're gonna catch one off a buzzbait. You're gonna shoot out to offshore structure, you're gonna catch one on a Carolina rig. You're gonna shoot up back to the bank, you're gonna catch one on a plopper. You're gonna shoot back off to the bank, you catch one on a deep diving crankbait. Sometimes dealing with pressure just means you're going to have a hodgepodge day. And if you accept that it's gonna be one of those days, then you're not always looking for a certain lure. You're not always looking for a certain type of cover or structure. You're not always trying to recreate the way that you just caught fish. You are just realizing it's a hodgepodge day. I'm gonna catch one here, one there, one everywhere. So that is a little bit harder to really like have me thoroughly talk about. The biggest thing you can do, have a lot of rods on the front deck, fish what looks good. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to check out that fin fishing gear. It's a great package deal that we got going on right now, and I will see you guys in the next one.